Essentially what we're trying to do is we've got it this far away from being production ready, and the only thing I'm looking for is just honest opinions from players, and just go, well, you know, is it good to go, or do we need to change something? Do we need to tweak something? So opinions, good or bad, are welcome. And with that, we should probably open it up to questions. Does anybody have any questions?
Is that going to be a Chinese model?
We're going to do two. We're going to do made in Canada, and it'll be about the same price as an Afterburner 2. And then we'll do, assuming the Chinese factory will look at it and go, yeah, we can do that.
Because the bridge is giving it away.
Yeah, originally it was designed as a import model only, but the response to the London show was, no, we want, you know, both.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. This prototype could have been sold about 5 times already. So yeah, these would be the tuners and the bridges that we use on the import production, and then I'm designing some bridge saddles for Hipshot to make, and those will be on the Canadian versions.
That piqued my interest a little when you said that you're talking with Hipshot about Fender bridge. So,
Well, I was playing around with the idea for doing, you know, the original P with the big pickguard, and I wanted something that looked like it had the shape of what's the P? What's that called that goes over top of the bridge? It holds the mute.
ashtray?
Yeah, ashtray. Yeah. Okay. So I designed a bridge that has the shape of the ashtray, but is just a solid bridge. And then that model never really made it off the drawing board. But I thought that's such a nice bridge that and it's got some cool tone shaping features to it. So I've talked to Hipshot about it. And they're, yeah, let's do it.
Is that going to be is that going to be solid brass, or is that going to be?
We'll play around with materials. Right now, aluminum is kind of where everybody's head is at as far as bridge plates go. But there's a certain tonality to brass. There's a fatness in the tone that you can't get with aluminum. So we'll probably for sure have brass saddles and possibly a brass plate too. Brass comes with a weight penalty. It makes it adds about a pound to your bridge.
It's not so much a weight penalty, as so much as just character.
Yeah, yeah, there we go.
You can't take the weight, just get a wire strap.
There we go. Yeah, it builds up that shoulder muscle. Any other questions?
Sheldon, Ziggy, that's just a prototype?
This is a prototype, yeah.
So, when's it available?
Well, currently on all our domestic production, we're backed up 9 months, so I feel comfortable enough in the refinement of the very first prototype that I'd be willing to take orders now.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have 6 months worth of development time.
Next question, would you be able to do it in white?
Yes.
Yes.
Probably, let's say, pearl white,
Um,
or just plain white.
Let's not get picky.
actually, a vintage looking white would be just fine.
Oh, more like a bone or a...
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally.
That's possible.
Yeah, no problem.
The reason I like this, I really love this bass. I noticed it on Facebook a while back, and I was just wondering when I was going to be able to see it.
Ah, cool.
But I do ZZ Top stuff, and I play in tribute bands, and I used to have one of the originals, but I like this 10 times better. I love that sound.
Ah, cool.
And I'm sure it'll be better when you're done with it.
Yeah, you know, we're really close right now. It's. I'll be honest with you. This is the closest prototype we've ever done. We've done lots of prototypes where we missed the mark by a mile, and that's more common. But this one's really close. We didn't go after, we didn't have a Thunderbird in our shop to compare to, because we weren't looking to make a Thunderbird clone. This is its own thing. And
it is very distinct.
but please do try it before you
Sure.
head out tonight.
Yes.
This isn't like the first completed prototype either. It's the only one that was cut, right?
Yeah, like we finished it.
It's pretty amazing.
My flight left on Tuesday and we finished it on Monday.
Was that luck?
I think it was like 6 years of draw a little bit and then
Yeah.
and then leave it and then come back to it and go, how did I miss that? And then fix that.
Pick away at it.
Yeah.
Sure. It's
Um,
beautiful. I really love that base.
Thank you. It's my new baby, or our new baby, and so it's our favorite right now too.
Nothing against all your other guitars, they're all great, but that one has a distinction. Like for Dingwall basses, that's pretty unique.
Ah, cool. Thank you.
I think.
I think somebody else had a question.
Yeah, do you the same string combinations on all your bases, or do you different bases have different steel versus nickel versus whatever?
Good point. You know what? I forgot to mention. Speaking of prototypes, the very first prototype fabric case back in 1993 was done using strings I just found in a box somewhere. And when I went to go string up the production version, couldn't find any strings to fit. So I never intended to get into the string business, but because of that mistake in the very first prototype, we ended up having to get our own strings made. So for 15 years probably, we only had stainless steel. That's all we had. When we moved over to D'Addario, we introduced nickel, and it was 90% stainless, 10% nickel. And it's been gradually doing this, and now we're seeing it probably 60% nickel and 40% stainless. We just switched this year to stringing all our bases with nickel right from the get-go. Totally, would you say what would the differences be between stainless and nickel? Our strings, not everybody's, but just ours.
The nickels have more bottom end, for sure.
Low mids especially.
Low mids especially, yeah. The steels are quite a bit brighter. I don't know. A lot of guys still really like the steels, like the solo type players seem to really like the steel strings, and a lot of the more working class guys are buying up the nickels.
The nickels also have a smoother feel to them. Stainless feel like the high-end sounds, kind of grindy, and it's a great tone. There's no question. Our nickels seem to be, I'd say, a little bit brighter than most nickels. Would that be correct? So, in the spectrum of string tone, they're pretty close together. It's just the nickels have more lower mids and feel smoother, and a little more polite top end.
Same gauge from model to model?
Well, we have 2 scale lengths that we work with. On our traditional styled instruments, the J and the P, they're 2 inches shorter overall, and so those gauges are a little bit fatter on the lower strings. I think we have a 105 on the E string and a 130 on the P. To tell you the truth, we didn't really pay so much attention to the gauges because in the end, it's how do they feel and how do they sound. And so what we did was we came here and we bought up every single string that Pete had, and then we went back, and because the D'Addario Pro Steels that we're basing them on don't have tapers, we actually started cutting into the strings and unwinding them a little bit and creating tapers, which really messed with D'Addario when we sent them the samples, and continues to mess with them. So long story short, I don't even know what the gauges are, to be honest. They're slightly different for nickel and stainless. We just kept going until we found a balance in tension and a balance in tone. And I'm not sure if that answers your question, but we only have 1 gauge for long scale stainless, 1 gauge for long scale nickel. So all the long scales would have the same gauge, and then all the medium scales would have the same gauge. Any other questions?
Fretboard wood on the D-Bird, is it just going to be what looks like mahogany, or is there going to be like maple options?
It's funny you should mention that because the artist that was the main push behind the D-Bird this year, what got it from off the drawing board and got me off my chair and got me working on it was a guy named Rob Vanderloo from the Netherlands. And he wants maple on his, which to me I can't really envision because I've never seen one with maple, but I think maple will be an option for sure. I don't know what we'll do as far as the headstock and pickguard goes with the maple board, but we'll figure that out as we go along.
You're just talking from the aesthetic standpoint. For
Yes.
Yeah.
Tone-wise, I think maple would be a better choice.
What I do like, having seen the profile of the instrument, is that it's shaped more, because I've played the Thunderbird here and just, I never liked that upper wing because it just seemed like it was just too much, like it was pushing the air out to an unnatural degree, whereas that looks like it just falls together a lot better.
It's accidentally ergonomic.
That's awesome.
It was completely not for looks, but with well, that'll probably feel good too. But I had no idea until we actually built one. But it does feel really good.
It feels really good.
The original, I haven't seen one in a long time, but I was blown away by the construction of them. I don't know if you've ever looked closely at the originals, but they're a neck through in the center section. They've cut V's into the sides, and then they cut arrowheads into the wings to glue them into these V's. It's the only instrument that's ever made like that. I don't know of any other guitar or bass that uses that construction method, but I think it's just brilliant. And that center section, the V, is what creates these two lines here. So I'm not 100% sure what they were going for with that, but it is a really interesting way of building the guitar. You know, so hats off to Gibson and the original designer.
First question, what about Dingwall flats? Any other plans for those in the future? And second question, do you plan to offer them deeper than 5?
Yes, but the plan is more like a year out. One of the problems with the original design was that, and I wasn't sure we were going to be able to fix that.
I was pretty impressed on the whole nylon strap test. I mean, I've never seen Peeper do that, that's for sure.
Well, it's funny. If you notice where that strap pin was, originally we had a hole here, and we didn't have the balance right. So, you know, and it's Monday. We've got to have this thing painted and shipped. So, so we came up with this position, and even just the difference between putting the strap on this button and using the strap lock, which extends it an extra ½ inch, makes a difference in the balance. So when you start getting, you know, when you start getting into that zone, every little bit counts. So to make a long story short, I wasn't even sure we could get the 4-string to bounce, but now that we've figured that out, we can figure out a 5. To answer your question about flats, we probably won't do flats, but I just came from the London show, and one of our customers is a flats guy, and he brought his bass all the way to the show and let me try it. And there's a set by Labella. Actually, I don't even think it's a set. I think he created a set out of a bunch of singles.
Yeah.
So I have the specs here if you want to try them.
I'm not even a flats guy. I should be curious to try a set on my Dingwall, but like every time I buy flats, I would probably throw them off after a week.
I'm not a flats guy either, but these sounded good, and they felt great. Yeah, they're Labella tape-ons, nylon tape-ons. They're the black strings.
Yeah. I think I know.
Tape-ons.
Yeah.
And we had flats on Steve Gibson's bass that sounded great too.
Yeah, he had flats on the first 4 strings, and then, or 5, no 4, and then he had 2 round ones,
Round ones right on the lower too.
which I guess is a common upright thing where you mix and match round ones with flat ones to try and bring the different parts out of the instrument. But I'd be willing to play these flats on a bass. Typically, I don't like flats. I think they ruin what we've tried to do, but the Labellas did a pretty good job at that. They look cool.
What about truss rod wheels?
Functionally, I think they're fantastic. Looks wise, I just can't get over the look of them. They remind me of, remember when we were kids and they had those round wooden.
The erector
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I think of every time I see them. Which is kind of a silly reason to not do something. I will say that Saskatchewan is reflected in our instruments. From the woods we choose, to the way we construct, to the whole philosophy behind the business, Saskatchewan values are reflected in our instruments. And what I mean by that is that if you look around, all the buildings in our area, they're all pretty plain looking, sturdy, keep you warm, and then let's get back out to the fields and mine some more potash. Whereas if you go to the coasts, they're a lot more fancy, but we're all about function, value, give you the most performance for your dollar. The least amount of fancy, the most amount of performance. And we had to sort of learn to be a little bit more fancy just to be able to sell bases in other places than Saskatchewan. So the truss rod wheel would be a very Saskatchewan thing to do, but I can't get past the look, I'm sorry. But it is a great design. I mean, if you've got more than one base.
It's
You know.
handy on the pitch of a gig,
Yeah, grab a pen and stick it in there.
Well, that's bars usually got something that'll fit in that hole.
Yeah, or in your car, you can set it somewhere. Any other questions? Well, how about we say thanks to Pete for having us here. This is awesome. If it's okay, we'll leave this rig up and let people come try.
Yeah, totally, you betcha.
Awesome. So anything we've got here other than Kalen's, other than that one, feel free to try any of these out, and especially the D-Bird.
Especially the D-Bird.
I think we have a couple of bases here, Pete, that we brought in today, and we've got special pricing on them. We have what's called B stocks. Every company has B stocks. We're all human. We all make mistakes. So we have the red one here has a couple of white specks in the finish, which for us is just like, well, we can't sell that as A stock anymore because of two tiny little flecks. So those two tiny little flecks that are hard to see, they're so small, will save you, quite a bit of money. We also have this ABZ here, where it's just, we didn't like the look of the glue line. It's structurally 100%, but aesthetically, it's where you're going to get a discount for that one as well. So today is a great day that if you're looking to save some money, we got a couple of instruments here that will do just that.
Sheldon, would you ever do an ABZ with the three pickups with the round shell?
Haha, funny you should mention that. If you take a close look at the shells on the D-Bird, we invested in molds to be able to make shells. All of the shells, well, I shouldn't say that. None of the shells here, but all of the shells on the Canadian instruments, we make in-house. We cast them out of liquid urethane, which is a very labor-intensive process. We can only get about 50 shells per mold, so we have to make a new mold every 25 bases. So we finally invested in injection molding tooling. Those are the very first samples out of the tooling. So once we get that online, then ABCs will have rounded shells. And eventually NG2s will too.
So I like the look and the feel of the flat paint.
Ah, okay.
ABCs.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the look and feel of the grain.
It is pretty nice. That's one thing that I didn't touch on was the ABZ. If you notice, it's got a matte finish, and what we call it, technically it's a satin open grain finish. Open grain meaning you haven't put this much paint on so that you can sand it flat and then have a perfectly flat surface. It's a thin amount of paint that actually follows the surface of the grain, and it's the thinnest finish you can possibly have. It's the least has the least effect on tone. As you add paint, you change the tone of the instrument. It starts to become more proof. So the more paint you put on, we all know the 70s instruments had like this much gloss on them, and they just sounded terrible because of it. But the ABZ is the most natural open tone of all the basses that we do because of that finish. And it's, as you know, it feels good, it looks good. Yeah. And it wears really nice too. Somebody mentioned Felipe earlier. Yeah. If you get a chance to see Felipe Gomez's bass, he's beat the crap out of it. Dragged it across Canada behind his bike twice, and it's got a real nice worn-in look, and it's really cool. And if there are any more questions, we can answer them. If not, we'll take a break and start doing some playing. All right. Well, thanks very much, guys.
Thank you, Sheldon.